Testing 1, 2, 3. Welcome to Do It for the Gram, an Enneagram podcast with your host, certified Enneagram coach, Milton Stewart. And we do it for the Enneagram, not Instagram. We make moves to make our community better. Today, I'm super excited. I have an amazing guest on today, and her name is DeAnna Wallace. She's an Enneagram 8. DeAnna, can you introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm DeAnna, like you just graciously introduced me. I'm an 8. For the past 2 years, I've been a graduate student / instructor at the University of Memphis, teaching Spanish and also studying languages. I've also been teaching young children at one of the tutoring / private schools here in the city as well.
Cool. All right, so me and DeAnna, as I say on the episode, we don't necessarily go back like 4 flats on a Cadillac, but we do go a little bit back. We actually ended up going to college together, but we didn't know each other like we do now, which is so interesting. And the reason I want to have DeAnna on the show is because I have not seen anyone grow as fast working on themselves as I've seen DeAnna grow. So that's why I definitely wanted her on the show for not only our Enneagram 8s, but other people who are in relationship with 8s, because I've seen her grow immensely. I've never seen someone grow so fast within a year because they did so much work within themselves, which was painful.
I wish you guys could see my face right now. It's crazy.
which is very, very painful. But you did a whole lot of it, and I think it's absolutely amazing and really good for Enneagram 8s to hear. So my Enneagram teacher, Ginger, she always says the Enneagram finds you. You don't find it. So how did the Enneagram find you?
Well, it was kind of like a twofold thing. First, when I first relocated back to Memphis, back to my hometown, I was working at an accounting firm, and the girl that I worked with in the office, she had already encountered the Enneagram, and she showed it to me, and I was like, oh, wow, this is interesting. And at the same time, I came across the young adult group at the church that I go to, and they were already like digging hardcore in the Enneagram. They had already made their predictions about me. Like they thought they had me figured out. I'm like, whatever, I roll. You guys don't know me, don't know my life, stop, whatever. But their guesses were correct. So I guess 8s are like unmistakable. So that's how I came across the Enneagram. And I felt like when I first read the description, like someone had stabbed me in the gut. Like I couldn't breathe. I was like, who is this? How did they know me? Like they snuck in my house. Like it was just like a crazy encounter with the Enneagram. And I think from that, I was like skeptical at first, but like from that moment forward, I was like, let me see if I can use this for something. And I feel like I was already in a space and open to grow, just because I had some previous challenges in my life and some disappointments and failures. So I was at a low point. So I was like, okay, right. DeAnna, you can't get any lower than this. So I was open and receptive to the Enneagram. And I think that's really important, especially for people who types that tend to be skeptical of the Enneagram, like 8s, some 3s, I think.
Yep. 6s, yep.
To be open and receptive to growth, because that's the only way you can get it, especially for stubborn people types. So,
okay, so mentioning that, so how did the Enneagram impact you when you finally came to the realization, like, oh shoot, this kind of got me pegged?
Yeah, I don't really know if there's an answer to that. Like, first of all, I just had a lot of support around me, like a lot of people supporting me, a lot of people accepting me for who I was and not telling me that I was too much, not telling me that, you know, I needed to tone it down or be anything different than what I was. I think there's a truth to the fact that like you have to hit a low point sometimes in order to like be ready to grab on to the next thing, like you're climbing up the mountain or whatever. And so I think through all of those things, I kind of grew from the Enneagram. Did I answer that?
Yeah, you're fine. You're good.
Okay.
You're good.
Okay. Wait, what was the question again?
So the question was, how has it impacted you?
Oh, impacted me. I did not answer that question. Okay. How has the Enneagram impacted me? I think it's made me more empathetic, for sure. The people in the young adult group of the church that I'm part of, they almost every time we are together, they're like, DeAnna, like who you were when we first met you and who you are now is like night and day.
Yo,
and I'm
super raw.
And I mean, I was just raised to be that way. To just be honest, it is what it is. And then I came into contact with a bunch of people who were very sensitive, who were like, is it how it is? So like I had to like really reevaluate how I was presenting truth. That like I believe truth to be an absolute, to be a direct thing. Like there's no gray area. And for the first time, the Enneagram showed me that like that's not true for everyone. That like truth, there is absolute truth, but truth can also be relative in some instances. And I think that was like the first key. Also, it taught me to like appreciate others for their differences, because pre-Enneagram, I would just go around judging people, like harshly judging them. Like I'd be like, okay, this person is ridiculous. They're too emotional. Why are you crying? Grow up. This is life. You need to have thick skin, blah, blah, blah. All the while, like, I guess like masking the things that I wanted to express, my sensitivities, my problems, my issues, the things that I was like on the inside screaming to come out. But now I'm in a space where I can listen to people and be open and honest.
Right.
But I think also another way the Enneagram has impacted me is that like it's made me self-aware. I'm aware of self, but I haven't got to the point where like I know what to do with the awareness. Like I think that that's like a lifelong journey. In addition to the Enneagram, just recently I started reading the Attachment Theory workbook. And I realized that I'm an severely anxiously attached person, like in relationships. And that correlates with the Enneagram as an 8 because of my need to be in control or feel control and security and consistency in relationships. And one thing that I didn't realize is that by demanding that someone fulfill those needs, that I was actually pushing them away. And I think that was something that that the Enneagram has really, it's trying to help me rein back that need to be in control and, the need to evaluate why I'm angry instead of just being righteously angered or not righteously angry.
Just angry.
Just angry for no reason.
Does your workplace stink because the culture sucks? Are you tired of tolerating people and wish you could all work together cohesively? Does the mere idea of going into work give you anxiety? If you said yes to any one of these, you should probably quit your job. But since you're not going to quit your job, you should contact Kaizen Careers. At Kaizen Careers, we are all about improving workplace performance. We use a unique tool called the Enneagram. The Enneagram helps individuals and organizations become more self-aware. That self-awareness lends into helping organizations with communication, conflict management, and leadership development, ultimately turning self-awareness into self-mastery and creating healthy workplace cultures so you can improve your services and bottom lines. Contact Kaizen Careers at KaizenCareers.com or Milton at KaizenCareers.com, or give us a call at 901-334-1644.
I think that's going to help a lot of 8s because I feel like in relationships that does happen to 8s to a certain extent for sure. Like we all have our cycles, even in our relationship, where we do stuff that either pushes people away or we do things that are super unhealthy for us to stay in a relationship. So I think you're hitting on a really good point for our 8s. So let's talk about, you talked about it gave you the ability to be more empathetic. So let's talk about the word that really came up with the Enneagram for 8s, and that's vulnerability. So she just took a huge deep breath. So how has the Enneagram and vulnerability like really helped you?
I was always like because I'm a super honest person, I was always like open to share experiences and then share input. And so because of that, people mistook that for vulnerability. And one thing that I learned, I was like, vulnerability isn't something that you necessarily do. Vulnerability is something that happens to you as a result of growth and openness. Like vulnerability falls into your lap. Like there are some instances that you have to be intentionally vulnerable and express how you feel. But a lot of times, like vulnerability comes to us, like in situations, and a lot of times we run from it. So being vulnerable for me has been like being uncomfortable with the emotions that I feel. So it's like pre-Enneagram, I didn't really address when I was frustrated or when I had anxiety or when I was sad about something or when I was even feeling depressed or down. I was just like, whatever, this is fine, you know? But now I'm vulnerable enough to like reach out to people and actually say specifically how I feel and like cry in front of people. I've always been a big crier, but like not crying for the right things, just like crying to just blow off steam. But like when I cry now, it's like I'm expressing something that I feel that is valid, that is calculated. And I think, that pretty much sums it up. I might have more to add later.
Yeah.
Let me think of it.
Definitely. So what would you say is the best part about being Enneagram 8?
I think that there's a sense of like fearlessness that 8s. Do you talk a lot about like instinctual variance?
Drop it like it's hot. They need to hear it.
So I think because I'm more of a 1-to-1 or a sexual type on the instinctual variant, that like I am more fearless. It doesn't mean that I'm not afraid. Like there's a difference. And I think that there's like I don't care. I really, truly don't care or hold a lot of weight. I'll put a marker in that because I will tell you guys one instance where I care about what people think about me. Right. But generally, I do not. And because of that, I'm like fearless in everything I do. People are like, oh, how do you just like get in front of people? And like, how do you do all these presentations in foreign languages? Like, how do you get up? And like, how are you so outspoken? And I'm like, the majority of the time, I'm like, scared to death. Like I'm sweating. I'm like, you can see the armpit sweat dripping, everything just gross. But like in my mind, somehow, I don't know, I think this is just a natural thing that I've told myself, like, if you don't do this, you'll never do it. Right. And so I think that there's like this internal drive in 8s and a fearlessness that like pushes us to do things that other people would not do. And I think that that is one of the best qualities of 8s, that like we're fearless to a fault. But fearless to take on things and to be champions for other people and for ourselves. I think that that's one of the most important things as well.
Yeah, I think of like courageous.
Yeah.
Like it's like, yeah, I'm still afraid, but I'm still pushing forward. I'm still moving forward. I'm still going to do it. This is not stopping me. That feeling of fear is not going to stop me. So let's flip that. Let's talk about what is the hardest struggle for you as Enneagram 8?
I never realized the extent to which, like, people say that 8s don't want to necessarily control others. They just want to be in control of their environment. But I don't necessarily agree with that. Because in order to be in control of your environment, you have to have a certain amount of control over others that are a part of your environment. Not necessarily that we want to tell people to do how we want them to do it, but when they're in our circle, in our space, like we want them to do things our way. And I never realized the extent to which I based the value of my relationships on what other people did for me that I told them to do. Or like what I demanded of people by being domineering or aggressive or abrasive. Like what I was demanding of them and how I was trying to control them. And so I think that that is one fault of 8s, that like we're often unaware of how we try to control others. And that takes me back to the, how I was saying before, the anxious attachment, that like we're afraid that people won't be consistent and won't show up. So we demand them to be consistent. We demand them to show up, and then they don't show up. And we get disappointed, and we're cynical about the whole world and about everyone. So that's one fault, and I still don't know what to do with that. Like, I struggle with even today. Like, me and my sister were hanging out. I was trying to give her some feedback, and I was just like, okay, DeAnna, you're actually trying to, like, control the situation. Stop. You're ridiculous. But not really ridiculous, just trying to grow. And that's another thing, is that, like, as soon as I feel myself trying to, like, belittle who I am as a person, whether it's negative or positive, I always have to, like, reinforce that with something negative. So not ridiculous, just growing. But yeah, I think the extent to which we try to control our environment and others is a major fault.
Okay. And so, kind of along those lines, I think this is important for especially people who aren't 8s to hear. What do you think is the biggest misunderstanding people have of 8s?
I think that there's a lot. I think.
Yeah, I agree.
But I think one of the big ones is that, like, we don't have feelings, or, like, we don't need someone to check in on us, or to, like, I think other people expect us to, like, help everyone else and have all the answers for everyone else. But, like, a lot of times no one has answers for us, or no one, like, checking in. And I think that's, like, a misconception that, like, 8s don't need anyone. Everyone needs community to survive. I think also that, like, people think that they mistake our truthfulness for, like, bluntness or meanness. A lot of times we will withhold truth if we feel the person isn't worthy of it. So if we are honest with you in that space, that means, like, you hold a lot of weight in our life and that we care about you. So no matter how, like, I have also modified the ways in which I tell truth to people. It's not as harsh anymore, because I try to, like, really see that person and not make it about me when I tell truth. Also, just, like, this, like, aggressive aspect. I think people mistake 8s are very intense and very passionate about almost everything. Like, me and one of my other friends who's an 8, we have strong opinions about everything. And people are like, how do you have an opinion about everything? I don't have an opinion about everything, but most things. And I'm really passionate about the things that I care about. Yeah. And people get really taken aback by that passion, like, and they see it as, like, aggressiveness or abrasive or domineering. But really, for me, it's just, like, I'm passionate about almost everything in my life. I have an intense emotion. And a lot of that isn't even rooted in anger. It's just rooted in my humanity of wanting things to be just and right in the world. So, yeah.
Because it's either you're passionate about it or it doesn't matter.
Right.
Okay.
There's no gray area for me. I'll be like, I don't care. Or I'll be like, this is important and this is why you should listen. Here's my 5-point thesis. Here we go.
So 8s somatically, they're a somatic type. When something is wrong, can you talk about how it feels in your body when something is wrong, or there's a disagreement, or something is frustrating you? Can you explain how that physically feels in your body? Because I want people to understand, like, there is literally somatic things going on when something is wrong, and an 8 feels something is wrong. Stuff is going on. Can you explain it?
Yeah. Pre-Enneagram, I would say when something was wrong or I was angry, I would feel it over my entire body. It was like a fire had set off in my body. And it was kind of crazy that, like, a lot of times when I was lacking motivation, that anger or, like, those feelings that something was wrong, like, kind of propelled me. It was, like, almost like a drug to be angry, and I was super productive. So instead of addressing how I felt, I just used that, like, fire. I suppressed it and used it to, like, get work done. Post-Enneagram, it's like I feel it sometimes in my chest, a lot of times, like, in my stomach. It's, like, right there, just, like, coming. I think it's, like, a progression of, like, from my stomach through my chest to my head, that, like, when things are wrong. And I think another thing is that, like, I can't let it go until it's addressed. Like, I'm such an outwardly expressing person. A lot of people, I have a friend who's a 7, and she's always like, I just need to be alone, and I need to meditate and be mindful. And I was like, no, I need to, like, outwardly express how I feel, or it will never be right. And, like, come up with a solution. I think that's, like, it's not confrontational, but not even in a negative way. Just, like, I want to address the problem and solve it, and then I can be at peace. Right. So there's a part of 8s that, like, are not at peace when there's any conflict in their life. That, like, and for that reason, I don't really have a lot of conflict. So if someone has a problem with me, most of the time it's their problem. I'm unaware of it completely, because I address things immediately when I have problems.
Hopefully you have found some value in this podcast episode. You can help to keep this podcast going by supporting us on Patreon.com. Patreon.com is a site where you can support content providers. Podcasts are free to listeners, but not free for creators. It actually costs money and definitely time to produce consistent and weekly podcasts. I podcast because I want to reach people and change our community through the Enneagram. If you want to help in that by supporting me, you can go to patreon.com/doitforthegram. That is patreon.com/doitforthegram. I think that's super important to understand, and that has helped me immensely working at the school I work at, because when we have students who are Enneagram 8s, and no, you're not supposed to type kids, and obviously I don't type them, but there are some markers sometimes you're like, that baby is an 8. Yeah. And when they get frustrated and they are spouting out and they are frustrated and it is coming out, one thing I'm able to do is I'm able to hold space for them to be like, okay, get that out. All right. So now, once you've got that out, let's talk about this, and let's talk about how we can actually next time maybe do something different so that we don't get the same outcome, instead of just saying, oh, they're in trouble, they're bad.
Right.
Oh, you're this, you're that type of deal.
Right.
And especially for our Black girls right, because and even for any woman who's an 8, to be honest, because a lot of times our society is so driven on women not being strong, being dominant, being straightforward. I mean, hitting you between the eyes with the words and things they're saying. So I think it's super important when I was learning the Enneagram to find to understand the Enneagram 8, and when I understand that inside when something's wrong, you physically have issues with that. It's that's not okay. That makes me understand so much more why when something's wrong, an 8 has to get it out. Because if they don't, if they repress that feeling, what happens?
You go into a very deep, dark place.
Right.
It's so dark there. You don't need to be there. I think there's two things, being a woman and then being a Black woman as an 8. Because there's all these things as a woman that you're told that you have to be, docile and sweet and submissive. And as a Black woman, you can't be too Black. You can't be too angry. You can't be too vocal about oppression. You can't be too angry at other non-Black people, right? So there's this double whammy of misunderstanding, and so I think also the Enneagram is a great tool for leaning into misunderstanding, leaning into discomfort, because I don't think this is discomfort that goes away. So by better understanding yourself, you better understand the world around you, and you have more tools to handle these things. So pre-Enneagram, I used to struggle hardcore with all the things of the world that made me upset. All the ways that I was told that as a woman or as a Black person that I was too much or not enough or I needed to change. I would fight everyone for everything. Right. And once I really got deep into the Enneagram, I decided to save my energy. So I'm in a space where
this is perfect. Yes.
I'm in a space where I'm is this worth my energy? No. And I let it go. So I don't engage with people that I know really won't benefit from it. And I think that's a tremendous tool for 8s to learn to slow down and to conserve your energy. Because then you realize so many things about yourself. I've realized so many things about myself just from slowing down.
Right.
It's easy to be angry because when you're angry, you're on the go, you're moving, fast paced. But when you slow down and decide not to be angry, you're wow, I'm not really angry. I'm disappointed. Wow, I'm not really angry. I'm actually extremely sad. Right. Wow, I'm not angry. This is something that has been haunting me since I was a kid. Right. Let me address this. And so I think all of those things are super important when you dig deep. And I was talking to a friend earlier about the importance of being comfortable with being uncomfortable. There's a space right there where growth happens. Right? So at first with Enneagram, I was super uncomfortable with the idea of my need for control and that I was, aggressive, domineering, blah, blah, blah. And once I got okay with okay, these are bad things, I was able to lean into all the good things. And there was a little space right there where I was able to grow and learn and to turn some of those negative things into a positive.
Yeah, I agree. I see you a lot of times
just the difference of you being able to, and 8s are protectors. They are like defenders, and especially people who either society has deemed them as outcast or weak. 8s are like super protectors, and I see you do that for quite a few people, which I think is absolutely amazing. You hit on energy. Let's talk about the 8's energy, because 8s have the most energy out of any type on the Enneagram. Now, there's pros and cons to this. So can you speak on the pros and cons of like the amount of energy that you have?
I think my energy is like, I'm really ambitious. So like I always have the next thing to do.
Right.
I'm like, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna get my PhD, I'm moving to Europe, I'm doing this program, I'm gonna do this, like I'm gonna, make my own TED Talk. I'm gonna do, like, I have all these things in the works, and books and lists, and there it goes. Books and lists of things that I'm gonna do. And so that's really great because I'm ambitious and I have goals, so I'm really goal oriented. But lately because I literally have I'll say I have 3.5 jobs, really 4. That
Facts.
I've taken that energy and taken my need to save money and make money and use that energy for good. But also I've realized points where I push it too far. And I think one thing about 8s and their energy is that it's really hard for us to know when we've gone too far until we reach complete burnout mode. And so that's a major con. And I think one thing that I'm really struggling with but I'm working on is yoga and mindfulness to really put me in a place of reflecting on things that I'm worried about or thinking about towards the future, but reminding myself to be present. So I was talking to a friend earlier at breakfast this morning, and she was just talking about how she couldn't do yoga because her mind is always going. And I was like, that is the point.
Yeah. So
the premise is that when you're in this space on your mat, trying to be mindful that your mind will continue to go. That every time you just give yourself a gentle reminder, okay, we're at yoga today. I'm going to be present. My intention, I'm going to be mindful. I'm going to be at peace. And then 10 seconds later, your mind's going to go back to whatever you were thinking about, right? So it turns into a discipline, a practice that you remind yourself to stay present and stay focused. And then once you have trained yourself to be present, which I'm not great at, to be honest.
I'm working on it too.
Yeah. You begin to do little things okay, this made me angry for a week because I argued with someone who had no intention of understanding my perspective. I won't do that anymore. I'll save my energy to work on something that matters to help someone who wants to be helped. And I think just little changes like that over the course of your life make a tremendous difference.
Definitely true. So if you had one piece of advice for an Enneagram 8 who was struggling right now, what would it be?
Just one?
Well, if you give me many as you can.
Okay. Number 1, go to therapy.
Ooh, yes.
Go to therapy. Go talk to someone. I think 8s, I know a lot of 8s who don't know they're 8s, but I know they're 8s. And they really, somewhere down the line, it was beat into them, or by circumstance, they had to learn to fend for themselves and not show emotion, have to be strong, have to be go-getters, have to push, not to need anything or anyone to talk with, or, so I think a tremendous tool for 8s who are not in a big place, a big step for an 8 would be to go to therapy. I think also, and this is something that I'm making time with for myself, is at least an hour or 2 a day is dedicated to myself. Wow. So if that's just meditating, doing yoga, taking a walk, just sitting in silence, turn your phone off, no social media, just whatever you can do to just sit with yourself and be alone and just be comfortable with being and not thinking of things. Just be okay, I'm in this moment. Let me notice the trees. Let me notice the birds, so therapy, mindfulness, 1 to 2 hours to take for yourself. Surrounding yourself with people who actually care about your energy. and that they reciprocate something. I think people mistake a lot of times like the need for relationships to be two-sided as like some of this transactional thing that like people just want people who benefit them. But like there's a lot to be said to having a group of people who really understand you and who feed you and breathe life into you and speak life into you versus people who don't understand, who aren't on that wavelength. So it's really important to have a community of people who match your energy. And just like the vulnerability aspect, like don't think that you can do things by yourself. I think like 8s are really like really hell bent on just like being self-reliant and I don't need nobody kind of thing. But for me, one really good tool of growth for me has been to lean on people hardcore and to like lean on them and for them to show up for me has showed me that like I can actually depend on people.
Right.
And that's been a real tremendous, tool for growth for me because it's caused me to be less cynical and more open and honest and loving. So, yeah.
So any last things before you go? Any last comments? Any last how people can reach you if you want them to reach you? Anything like that?
Ooh, reach me.
Because you do have this amazing article on doitforthegrampodcast.com.
Oh yeah, you should
has
check
an
out.
Amazing article.
Yeah, I should check that out. It's really short, so if you're like one of those people, short attention span, just check it out. It's on doitforthegrampodcast.com. Also, you can reach me. My Instagram is DWallBaby. I know it's just super immature, right? Okay, but anyways, DEE_WALL_baby, BABY. I made it when I was like, I don't know, really young. So don't judge me. Maybe I'll change it one day. Yeah. I'm trying to think some parting words for you guys. I don't know, just be uncomfortable or comfortable with discomfort. I think that that's really a key to growth. Like, whether you, like, really dig into the Enneagram deep or not, like, doing the things when you feel that discomfort, because we all feel it, to, like, lean into those things. And right there's a little, like, hole right there, and that's where growth is. And I think that that's something that everyone can carry with them going forward. But yeah, I'm really thankful to Milton for having me.
Thank you.
And letting me share my thoughts and my growth. It's really been a great experience. And thanks, Milton.
Thank you. So that's all I have for this episode. Thank you so much for listening. Please rate, subscribe, and share. That is rate, which helps others find the show. Subscribe so you can get the latest and greatest episodes, and share if you feel this information can benefit someone you know. If you need personal life coaching or career coaching based in the Enneagram, I do that through my organization, Kaizen Careers Coaching and Consulting, LLC. You can contact Kaizen at kaizencareers.com or Milton at kaizencareers.com, or you can give a call at 901-334-1644. Also, if you would like to be a patron supporter, you can go to patreon.com/doitforthegram podcast. The Patreon community has more access to exclusive content, merchandise, and input into the podcast. Podcasting is not free for podcasters, though it is free for listeners. And so I want to continue to make and create valuable content. And so you can definitely help and be a supporter at patreon.com/doitforthegram podcast. Also, if you're in the Memphis area and you're looking for an Enneagram community, I am developing one. It's called Enneagram 901. We have a Facebook page. You can go ahead and sign up there and join, because we're going to have different events and we're going to get this Enneagram thing started in Memphis. Last thing, if you go to doitforthegrampodcast.com and subscribe, you will receive a free gift. It is a PDF of each number. You can find... what's this? You can also read. See, I messed that letter up, and that's why I look all weird. I'm so glad you can edit stuff, because I can't. You can also read some really good blog posts, just like the one that DeAnna just talked about. She wrote a amazing blog post that's got a lot of people who've read it responding back and saying, thank you so much. I love it. It has touched me. I feel understood. I feel seen. So definitely check that out on doitforthegrampodcast.com under the blog part. And if you're feeling extremely aggressive and that you want to do something crazy and something that's too intense for you, stop, pause, think about the Enneagram, and do it for the gram. The Enneagram, of course. We'll see you soon. Bye.